Hey guys, CrimsGreyVR, and today I'll be doing another tier list, so let's get into it. Now the first sport I'm going to talk about is tennis. I ended up getting into a tennis tournament at a event for tennis. It was a good experience, though I feel like I could have I could have done a lot better than I did, because the crazy thing about it was that the person I put up against was like a pretty like short person. Like, I'm not trying to diss any short people, but like it was it was strangely intimidating because I didn't want to like go all out, which is kind of strange because it's a tournament and you're kind of supposed to go all out because it's supposed to like see who's the best. It was crazy. I was so nervous for no reason with getting into the tournament. I should have just done my best, but it's fine. It's fine. You see, back in the day, I was more of a I am still an introvert, but I was nowhere close to being as shy as I was in the past. It was pretty cool. I like tennis. Tennis was a really good experience because it was one of the sports that I stuck with the longest as compared to like all the other sports I have done. It was a lot more enjoyable for me back in the day. And yeah, if you guys want to do tennis, I would recommend it. Now, my next sport that I did when I was younger was fencing. And this was a sport that I really loved to do, but the only reason that I stopped doing it is because it was run by like a very like super small school that probably only had like 20 students, 20 or 30. I would assume, from my observations of how big the school is. But yeah, it was really fun. I love the idea of having swords that you won't accidentally like skewer someone with, but are still steel swords. And it's so fun. I love the fencing style, which is... it's funny how like I like swords and stuff. I've never looked into what fencing's based off of, but I do know that it seems, at least from the type of swords that they use for the sport, it's like a saber style, which is pretty cool. I like those type of swords. More finesse, more finesse. Yeah, and it kind of reminded me of Pirates of the Caribbean with like parrying and fencing and all that sword fighting. It was really fun. I really enjoyed it, though I wasn't able to do it for very long. And for this sport, I did end up doing a tournament like with the previous sport I was talking about, tennis, and it was okay. Yeah, I did decent, or I can't. Now that I think of it, I may have chickened out on that tournament, which, oh my, that is cringe. That is cringe, I will admit. But you see, I had the opportunity, but I didn't take it, so that was kind of a bummer. But it was still a fun sport. I would recommend you guys try it if you know of a club that does it. It is a wonderful sport. You should at least give it a try. One of the best experiences I've had with this sport is, so with the class that I was taking for it, there was like a group of us of about like 10 of us. And what we would do is we would have two teams lined up on two sides of like the middle line of the court. And what we would do is pretty much do a line fight. So pretty much if you think of like how they fought in the medieval times with like a formation in a way, that's kind of the idea of what we did. It was really fun. I enjoyed it because like my favorite thing to do was to just like parry someone, then like thrust at another person out of nowhere to take them by surprise and that sort of thing. For some reason, when I did it, my favorite move was like the parry, loop around, and then thrust to the other side. I love doing that. I that's like the only maneuver that I really like remember, which is kind of crazy because like they taught us a bunch of different types of blocking and a defensive and offensive like moves. But it was really fun. I love the sport and I like swords in general. And I recently, it's not really part of fencing, but it got a prop long sword that I've been playing around with too, which is pretty fun. It's a little off topic, but you know, swords are cool. Who can disagree? No one. Unless you're lame, but we don't talk about that. You guys are cool. Another really fun story with fencing was I was practicing and doing a duel with one of the other students of the club, and we were fighting and like going back and forth and blocking and all that fun stuff. And one moment he like thrusts, I like do a really, really hard parry and just like knock his sword out of his hand, foot or two away, and it was like a clunk. It was so satisfying. Yeah, I didn't keep going though, because that would have been rude and be like, haha, stab. I was surprised I got into it because there was a few smaller children that like I was kind of scared to fight them because I didn't want to accidentally be too aggressive and actually hurt them, because I was a pretty tall kid when I was younger and it was crazy. The next sport is airsoft, and the reason that I play airsoft is because of how much I like military gear and all that fun stuff. I'd always go over to different military surplus stores and oogle over old military gear that was used. It's really fun. It's very expensive, unfortunately, but I love the variety in the guns that you can use in the sport. Like, you can go from modern back to even like World War II guns. For example, you can find a airsoft MG42, and you can even find an airsoft version of almost anything, really. For example, there's airsoft mortars that you can buy where it's like you pop it in, goes like thunk, fires as a like radial explosion. The one thing about airsoft that I like is with the rules and stuff, it's like honor based, because if you hit someone, they have to call their hits and stuff, which sometimes that's hard for people to do, especially I've noticed with people that like wear a good amount of gear. Sometimes it's kind of hard to realize you've been hit. I've certainly done that, unfortunately. I have gotten one of the funny things is back at a previous airsoft arena I used to play at, which is an outdoor one in Oregon. It was a really fun one. Is in the woods. I was going through the forest trying to find the enemy team, and all of a sudden I just get sniped in the nuts. I'm not sure if he shot me intentionally right there, but I definitely felt that. That's for sure. I 100% felt that. It wasn't as bad as some people make it look, to be quite honest. With my experience with airsoft, with getting hit and stuff, it is not very painful at all. Like, as compared to like paintball and other sports like that, it's not that bad. I feel like with my experience with paintball, it hurts a lot more than with airsoft. But to be honest, it depends, because with airsoft, there's a variety of different guns that have different power levels in terms of range and FPS and all that fun stuff. Yeah, it's pretty fun. I've enjoyed it. The hard part about airsoft is if you're someone that wears glasses, you have to kind of like modify things in order for it to work with your glasses, because if you go without your glasses and try airsoft, it's not gonna work out. I've done that way too many times, and it's just not fun, because like you can't even like recognize there's like an enemy there until like you're shot and you're like, oh, hit, I'm dead, and that sort of thing. But if you guys would want to check out airsoft and get into it, I would recommend it. The way I got started with it is me and my cousins on like Thanksgiving and stuff. We got these airsoft pistols. They're like the little spring ones, and we'd have little like airsoft wars in the backyard and stuff, which is always fun. Good memories, very good memories from childhood. And with my experience with airsoft, which is kind of funny, it's kind of, because it is like a military simulation game in a way, and I feel like I've gotten hardened to like loud sounds, because in airsoft you can use airsoft. There's like airsoft version of grenades that go boom and all that fun stuff, which is really cool. I'd love to get my hands on a few of those. Unfortunately, the places that I've went to have like banned them because of fire risk, and unfortunate with that sort of thing. It's sad. From the loud sounds of that and the sound of getting shot at and stuff from an airsoft gun is pretty intimidating too, to be honest, especially from a heavy machine gun, which is pretty terrifying. I remember in an airsoft game, I was stuck in a big like makeshift building, and I was pinned down by this guy with a airsoft minigun. It was just like I was hearing pelting everywhere. Every time I try to like pop up and shoot, I would get pinned down over and over. it's kind of terrifying, but it's really fun because of the amounts of like adrenaline you get. I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie with sports, I've noticed, because I've gone with the more extreme sports that involve fighting and all that fun stuff. Another thing that I love about airsoft is that you can employ real world tactics that they would use in like an actual like military situation, which is fun, especially when you have a good team and good coordination. It works really well, and it's so satisfying to pull off like some sort of like frontal assault or something like that, trying to take a point or like flank around and all that fun stuff. But I would recommend you guys get into airsoft. It is expensive, unfortunately, like all fun stuff. It's really expensive to get into, but if you have some money to throw around, all you really need is a good airsoft gun, which would probably cost you around like probably around $200 at most to get you started at least, and then some facial protection. That's like a very important thing to have with airsoft.
It is truck to refrigerators to dumpster, 360 spin onto the pallets, backflip gainer into the trash can.
Yeah, gainer! Yeah!
Parkour!
Parkour!
I'm right behind you, Andy! Come on!
Yeah!
Now, the next sport that I've done is parkour, and with this sport, man, this is the most fun sport that I've ever done. And the reason that I got into it is because I've always loved watching those YouTube videos where they do the POV, first-person view of the parkour athletes going around on top of buildings and all that cool stuff, doing a bunch of like cool flips, climbing walls, and all that fun stuff. That's one of the main reasons I got into it. And other than that, it was because, man, whenever you got something down, it was so satisfying, because mainly with doing different moves and stuff, you had to think about how you're supposed to approach it, how you do it, what happens if you trip, what happens if you like somehow make a mistake, how to recover from that. It's really cool because it teaches you how to plan out things and to just send some things and have a way to bail out in a safe way. Also, with parkour, I got into it through a club or it wasn't really like a parkour club. It was more like a camp, like a kids camp that they had that I went to. It was really fun. They had a bunch of big like parkour equipment that we climbed around on and stuff. It was really fun. We went through a bunch of different, it's like stations in a way, because we were being taught how to like do the safety roll, how to do different vaults, how to do some basic stuff. And yeah, we even had some like challenges that we did. Okay, I remember this one challenge where they had this big pool with a plank over it, and there's two people that would go on top of it, and essentially what they do is like wrestle, try to be the last one on the beam, and if someone fell off, they would lose. It was pretty fun. I love doing that. And the great thing about parkour is that you can literally do it anywhere. And yeah, you don't really have to pay pretty much for anything. You can technically do parkour with like nothing. Really fun thing about parkour is that there's always something new to learn, because it's kind of a challenging sport in a way, because you have to learn how to do a whole multitude of different things in order to learn certain moves and employ them, and like how to string them together into like lines and all that fun stuff, and how to figure out how to like make stuff flow. And I personally love that, because essentially it makes it a lifelong journey rather than like you just do it for fun. Like example for like tennis, it's like you learn how to do different moves, you learn how to get across the court as quickly as possible to return the ball, and then that's pretty much it. Like other than that, it's kind of boring. But with parkour, there's always something new. It's hard for me to get out there to do it, but when I do, I always so happy when I do it, because it's so satisfying, as well as it just gets you outside and gets you moving in a fun way. It's not like a boring, like, yes, I'm going to do 10 push-ups, 20 crunches, 2-minute plank, and a mile run every day. It's not like the same thing you do every day. It's like a level up each time you do it, and it's so satisfying. I would honestly recommend you guys get into parkour if you're looking for a sport that doesn't really require anything to like buy or anything like that. And I believe this sport is the most beginner friendly, just because of the community. The community is awesome. There's so many like videos online that you can find on like how to do certain moves and stuff, as well as I believe you can get connected with other people that do parkour via like some sort of social online thing. But yeah, the one drawback I would say is that most of the time, especially if you live in the US, if you do parkour, you're most likely not going to be like doing it with someone, unfortunately. For me, whenever I've gone out and done it, it's been mainly just me and myself and I, which it's rough sometimes, because being the only one doing it feels awkward. It feels like everyone's just staring at you, which is kind of dumb, because honestly, people are gonna be like, oh, look at that, look what he's doing, that's pretty cool, or like, oh, I don't really care, you can do whatever you want. Now guys, let's get down to what you guys came for. Now, when it comes to tennis, in terms of rating it, based off of my experience, it was mostly positive. I didn't have any super negative events happen. It was mostly positive, with the exception of the tournament I went to where I didn't try as hard as I wanted to, even though it was pretty funny though. So that is something I've noticed and learned about myself, is whenever I go against someone in any sport that is like smaller than me, there's like some sort of switch that goes in my brain that's like, oh, okay, let's try, but not try 100%, so I don't actually kill this guy. Yeah, I don't know why. That's just something that happens. But with tennis, I would put it in A tier because I did it for a good amount of time and it was really fun. And I actually got really good at it. Then once I stopped doing that, I just didn't really do it. It was one of those things where it's like, it was fun to do, but like eventually it kind of got boring. And it's like, I don't really want to do this anymore now that there's not really a group to go out and do it with. That's the annoying thing about like team sports. I mean, tennis technically isn't a team sport, right? Is it? I don't know. But that's the hard thing about sports that require more people, is that it's hard to really get out there and do it because you need to organize with others in order to make it happen. So I would rate tennis an A. The next sport I went over was fencing. With this one, I would say I really love this sport. I would have done it more if I had the opportunity to, in terms of branching out to a different group in order to continue that. But just because it was so small and limited, I would have to rate it. I would have to put it in a C tier just because, unfortunately, with that sport, there's not very many people that do it. So it makes it especially difficult to really keep doing it because you can't really fence with yourself. Let's be honest. Unless, don't. I know what you're thinking. Stop it. Don't. With fencing, it's kind of hard to keep doing it if you don't have a group that does it continually. Now with the next sport, which was airsoft, this one, I really have a hard time rating things, not gonna lie, especially sports that I like but don't do as often, especially with airsoft, because I've noticed it is an expensive sport. Because in order to get into it, you have to buy a good airsoft gun that'll last you a good amount of time and some facial protection, and that in itself can be pretty pricey in terms of the gun. Because I've noticed with an airsoft gun, if you get an airsoft gun that's below like $100, not $200, it seems to be like trash, like Chinese made knockoff trash. And one word of advice, don't get your airsoft gun from Walmart, because that's gonna like last you one day 100% of the time. All the airsoft guns that I've bought from there up and died like crazy. There is this one that was supposed to be an AEG, but like for some reason it had like a fake optic on top that it stored the BBs in. When I tested it, it only shot one round and then jammed somehow. And then we tried fixing it, but we found out there was like no way to fix it, and it ended up breaking immensely. Yeah, it's crazy. But once you get your gear set up and you have your setup down, it's not a bad sport. Other than like buying airsoft BBs, that's like the only continual like purchase you'll have to really think about, because of different arenas required to have biodegradable BBs now, which is all right. I don't really mind that. Yeah, with airsoft, I would rate it B, because easy to like get into it once you're into it, but also a B because it's hard to get into because of how much money you need to put down in order to actually have fun, because price gaps in terms of airsoft guns, it's rough. It is rough. I've wasted a good amount of money with airsoft guns sometimes. It's very sad. The last sport I talked about was parkour, and with parkour, it's really fun. It's really fun to get into. It's really easy to get into because the fact you don't really need to pay for like anything to get into it. You don't need special equipment to get into parkour. All you need is the willpower to take, let's say, YouTube videos and put into action, and to learn the moves and that sort of thing, which the one thing I love about parkour is there's always something new to learn. It's really fun. There's always different ways to do it, because there's like not really any cost to it other than like learning when to push yourself and learning when to not push yourself, and to essentially learning how to not be stupid in certain situations. Because sometimes if you try to push yourself to do a move and you haven't done appropriate prerequisites to the move, you're gonna end up messing up and hurting yourself. And that's the only rough thing with parkour. But other than that, I would give it a solid, I would give parkour an S rank. Now guys, if you enjoyed the video, comment down below your thoughts on these sports, as well as feel free to check out some of my other content. And if you're new to the channel, feel free to like and subscribe. CrimsGreyVR out.